All right, welcome back to the Bitfinex podcast. We're broadcasting live from the Plan B Forum in El Salvador. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez, and I'm joined by Jesse Knutson from Bitfinex Securities. Jesse, how are you?
Yeah, it's great to be back on the show.
Indeed. How many interviews have we done now?
We've only done two.
Two, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we've done more for some reason.
We should do more.
Yeah, we can do more. Jesse, how has the Plan B conference been treating you?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the Plan B conferences, I think, are really, really good. I've always enjoyed the Lugano ones, the past three, and it's really cool to see things spreading out into El Salvador. My first time to El Salvador was a couple of years ago, and even in that short period of time, I think things have changed a lot and are moving really, really quickly, and it's cool to see a conference of this size and scale kind of like bringing in more people into here and putting more fuel on the fire.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like that's been a recurring theme in the interviews that I've done throughout the conference.
Yeah.
Is a lot of people have come here 2-3 times, and now they're telling me like, wow, like I noticed a change. Like there's a visible change here now.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, it's little things like I'm not a Spanish speaker. I live in Taiwan. I speak Chinese. That's all my brain has capacity for. I'd love to add Spanish, but I don't think it's going to happen at this point. But I noticed it was a struggle the first time I was here. But there's English like all over the place here now, like in the restaurants and the hotels. And the first time I was here, I struggled to get a coffee.
Yeah.
But so that's a data point. That's a sign. The roads are improved. There's more construction. Real estate is heating up.
Companies are coming here.
Companies are coming here. I heard a rumor. Yeah.
And then a recurring theme that I've heard kicked around a lot is tokenization. Like the El Salvadorians themselves are very, very excited about the digital assets regulation and the opportunity to tokenize things. And then not only that, there's a lot of companies that are coming here from abroad that are trying to take advantage of tokenization.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies coming here. Some of them are coming to take advantage. We got to keep an eye on it still, I think. But I say that El Salvador is kind of unique because it's very unique because it's a small country. But out of all of the countries in the world that are looking at Bitcoin, digital assets, tokenization regulation, they're kind of uniquely the only one that has really figured out the accretive parts of like the industry, and I think it's only three things, right? I think it's Bitcoin, I think it's stable coins, and I think it's tokenized securities and RWA, and I think that's it. And there's a lot of smoke in our industry, and that's the signal is those three things, in my opinion, and they seem to have nailed it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of excitement around, like particularly like RWA. Like, for instance, I met some people here that were like tokenizing real estate investments. There's people like, for like construction, like trying to raise capital to like carry out these like development plans.
Yeah, that's one of the areas where there's a massive friction point, right? Where it's difficult for developers to get access to capital, but at the same time, there's a massive demand for real estate here, right? So it's like, if you look at the arrivals and departures data for El Salvador, it's a massive standout. So there's just a lot of, and it's this pent up demand, right? Because as the president says, there's basically, 3 generations that have struggled in El Salvador, and there's that demand that's been pent up and squashed, and now it's opening up, and there's money that wants to come in from Salvadorians that live abroad. There's the people like what the company is doing, the country is doing in terms of the ideology and the philosophy, and with Bitcoin. So there's a lot of money that wants to come in here, and real estate is a no-brainer. I mean, there's people that we hear from a lot of investors that they want exposure to Salvadorian growth. And if you're living, overseas, how do you invest in El Salvador? If you could invest in a tokenized real estate product or a basket of tokenized real estate product, and it looks kind of like a real estate investment trust, I think there'd be a ton of demand for that.
How helpful is it that like the regulators here are like open-minded and have like a clear path for people to pursue like these tokenization goals?
Yeah, no, I think that's a massive edge. And, Bitfinex Securities was the first company within our group to be licensed and registered here, and we were able to, at a very early stage, provide some feedback on what we thought the regulations should look like from a business perspective. We were also the first, company within the whole industry. I think our license number is 0001, so we're the first one, right? So it's definitely an edge, right? Like they're open-minded, they're progressive. They're willing to work with business, and I think that's kind of what's going to make it happen. And importantly in El Salvador is, financial services are still a small part of GDP, so you don't get that intense pushback from the incumbent players that you get in like the bigger markets like the U.S. or in Europe.
What do you see as like the like most exciting opportunity here in El Salvador, like as far as like tokenization goes?
I think real estate is a big one. I mean, I would really like to see those kind of products on the platform, and kind of, the goal for us is to make an on-the-ground contribution to the economy. I'd love to see things like hotels and new construction getting built, so we have a real contribution to the economy. We create jobs. There's taxes. It helps El Salvador go farther. That would be, I think, really something exciting. Our pipeline at the moment, I think the next asset we'll probably have on the platform is going to be the second iteration of the Blockstream mining node.
Okay.
So Stalker is another tokenization platform that we worked with on BMN1. They've launched the BMN2. I just did a panel with Adam Back.
Okay.
And Adam said that the BMN2 has already raised $190 million. So I think that's, for security tokens and organic demand, that's a massive number. And we're looking to get that, the BMN2 on the platform this quarter. And then after that, on the same panel, Michele Crivelli from NextBridge, he also mentioned that they have tokenized public equity that they're going to bring to the platform as well. So I think we've got some really exciting issuances coming up.
That is exciting. And then I guess in retrospect, what feedback do you have on the NextBridge raise that was so successful, where they just recently raised like $30 million?
Yeah, they raised $30 million. We're doing recurring subscriptions, so every month between the 15th and the 17th, people can place their subscriptions and be involved in that. Otherwise, you can trade it in the order book on the platform. We're going to roll out redemptions later in the quarter, so the opposite of subscriptions.
Okay.
And feedback has been good. I mean, people are happy to see a tokenized T-bill product. That's a massive vertical within the RWA space. Right? I think it's the biggest. There's $3.5 or $4 billion of tokenized T-bills out there.
Okay.
And this is the first one that's done on top of Bitcoin. So I think part of growing that demand is with us. We want to be able to offer collateralized lending so that people can use their tokenized T-bills, put it up for collateral, borrow against it, and then do other trading on Bitfinex. So that's something we're working on as well. But I think that'll be really important to kind of unlock the demand for security tokens on the platform.
And with these new kinds of like tokenized investment products, what kind of response have you seen from investors themselves?
Yeah, investors, it's really on a issuance by issuance case. So, we've done a number of fixed income kind of issuances with Micro Capital, which is a large microfinancing company out of Europe. They do like short duration issuances, kind of like, we typically offer 11 months and 36 months, range between 9 and I think 12 or 13%. There's been pretty good pickup on that, but investors are looking for equity, and we haven't done an equity issuance yet. So I'd really like to do something like that, and a tokenized, equity in a real estate project, I think would be a great one.
Okay. And do you have a timeline for anything like that in the near future?
I hope we get this stuff out this year.
Okay.
Like, I think that just the trend for this year, I think, is going to be more issuances from us and of bigger size. So most of what we've done previously has been kind of low double-digit million or high single-digit million. And I think that the trend for the next 12 months is going to be just more issuances and much bigger size.
You guys are kind of pioneering like a new type of market.
Yeah, which is fun and stressful. I feel like every issuance takes 5 years off my life. But hopefully I'll be around to finish off the year. But yeah, no, we're definitely breaking ice. I mean, there really is only a handful of platforms globally that are licensed and regulated to do both the primary market capital raise and then also to do secondary market trading. And there's even fewer that are able to do that out of more than one jurisdiction. So we're in El Salvador. We're also in the AIFC, which is a financial center like Dubai and Astana, Kazakhstan. And another really interesting part of that ecosystem is now we have Hadron. Right, so Tether has announced a tokenization platform called Hadron, and I think that really fits in nicely with our product offering. So you can go to Hadron, you can tokenize your assets, you can manage your assets, your whitelist, and all of that stuff from the Hadron platform, and then you can come to Bitfinex Securities. We can list it, we can help you do a capital raise, and we can let your investors do secondary market trading. So I think it's a pretty comprehensive offering.
Yeah, I would agree. And I guess as far as these tokenized offerings go, right? Sorry, the fly's making me laugh.
That's not a beat.
Yeah, at least it didn't sting you, right? No.
Some kind of sign, right? You get stung right in the face.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as the tokenized offerings go, like here in El Salvador, like you guys are doing some really innovative stuff. Like I've heard like tokenization get kicked around in the legacy finance world. It's like kind of a buzzword right now.
Yeah.
Like, are they paying attention to what you guys are doing?
They're definitely paying attention, but I think their motivation is different than us, right? So our motivation is to, okay, how to get this thing? Is to, in line with Bitfinex's Freedom Manifesto, which I think is a really inspiring manifesto for a company, if you're going to work at a company.
Yeah.
Right, is to return more personal sovereignty to assets. So it's really difficult to do bearer assets now, maybe impossible. But what we're doing is pretty close, right? People can take their assets off the platform, you can self-custody it, you can move them around to other platforms for arbitrage, and then also to streamline the ecosystem. So you look at what the big banks are doing, they're doing some large issuances, and it looks, when you dig into the details, it looks kind of like left hand to right hand, and they seem to want innovation without anything really changing, right? There's custodians, there's transfer agents, none of it integrates with Bitcoin or Tether. It might touch on a CBDC, a lot of it is institutional only. So I think they're looking at it from the perspective of cutting costs, right? You can use the blockchain to fire your back office. Our motivations, I think, are different, and I think our offering is probably more competitive, and I think will probably be more interesting to the market, like broadly speaking.
Have you considered, like, at all that, like, maybe that, like, there will come like a changing of the guard where we have like a generation of these like kids that are like crypto native investors that grew up with like, crypto.
Yeah.
And like eventually they're going to like find themselves in these like, powerful financial positions, and they're going to be way more open-minded to like the idea of like tokenization and things of that nature. Yeah. Like, do you think like, because like the entrenched like legacy financial system is typically like been way more conservative towards new technologies, that like a digitally native like generation will really like kind of be a catalyst?
I 100% agree, and that's kind of like the demographic argument that Tom Lee from Fundstrat, he makes for Bitcoin, right? Is that as the young people get older, they accumulate wealth, they get more powerful, they're going to be more comfortable allocating that wealth to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to digital assets and to tokenized assets as well. So you get kind of the guys who are like, we like the ETF because it's really hard to manage a Bitcoin wallet, and if I can figure it out, I think everybody else can figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think as that generation who grows up, like you say, digitally native, and they're just very comfortable with that technology, I think that'll feel much less scary and very natural to them. So I think you're definitely right on that.
Okay, cool. And then we're running out of time, but like, is there any final words you want to leave with the audience about El Salvador or
No, I just think like just a generally really optimistic tone. I think it's interesting to see what's happening in the U.S. It's kind of, it's hard. It's anybody's guess as to which way that goes. I think broadly it's probably positive for the industry.
I think people are more optimistic right now.
I think they're more optimistic. Maybe the pessimistic case is things get a little bit too wild. Retail gets hurt and then there's a backlash. So kind of as a Bitcoiner, I hope they would follow kind of the Salvadorian, the Bukele model. Mm-hmm. And if they could get rid of, the choke point 2.0, the restrictions on the banks, I think things like that are, kind of what we need. And a Bitcoin reserve is icing on the cake. But the trend is pretty clear. And I think that mainstream institutional investors, they're kind of catching up to the vision that we've had all along. Yeah. So I think that's really encouraging and exciting to see.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's super exciting.
Yeah.
For me, like with the Trump administration coming into office and like portraying themselves as pro-crypto. I mean, it's too early to tell, right? But like portraying themselves as pro-crypto, like it seems to me like in the industry, like people are a lot more like optimistic, hoping for like, like a clear like regulatory guideline that they can follow or just the freedom to operate.
I think just the freedom and then opening up on the banking side too. I mean, really what's happened in the US has I think really dampened, Bitcoin price performance for a long time. And I think it's two main things probably is that the restrictions on banks that kind of like affects everybody globally because it impacts the correspondence banks. And then also, using Bitcoin for payments and it's a taxable event, those kind of things. So there's some tweaks there that can be made that I think would, really accelerate demand for Bitcoin and maybe help us return to the original idea of Bitcoin as peer-to-peer digital cash as well, which is something that Wall Street is like not even, when you look at what Wall Street writes about Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin as like
a
digital
treasury
gold
asset or something.
Yeah, it's digital gold. Like nobody's even thinking about peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? So, or the Lightning Network, or that doesn't even appear on the radar. So, you know, there's a lot of really interesting things that'll happen. I think as the as regulators, policymakers open up, and then as the industry better understands the asset.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You bet.
It's been a pleasure.
Looking forward to number 3.
Yeah, me too.